Trump says he's going to rain hell in the Middle East. You know, these are all tactics for gas and oil. Him taking Canada, him trying to strong arm the OPEC members by raining hell in the Middle East. It's all for pipelines. Now, let me explain how this works. He wants to annex Canada and Greenland to run pipelines into Western Europe to not pay transmission fees for Exxon and Texaco and all the oil companies to transmit oil and gas throughout Canada without paying transmission fees to Canada or Greenland, meaning to not pay BP in other words, they want to rob Canada, meaning the United Kingdom, from having royalties of transmitting American gas into Western Europe. The same for the Dutch. And they want to warmonger the Middle East in order to flunky the House of Salt, the Pentagon. So they also want to stop North Africa, and they want to subvert North Africa because they're a majority of OPEC members, as well as Iraq, Syria, not Syria, but Iraq, Iran, and Libya, that's been paying the total price of genocidal wars that America has toppled their governments to flunky the OPEC members into submission. The Western powers, mainly America. And so now you got President Biden increasing the sanctions on Russian energy to China and India in order to weaken the BRIC Global South Economic Order. So now Biden has increased the tariffs on Russia to muscle and extort and hurt the economies of India and China by increasing the sanctions on Russian export energies because India and Russia are buying in their own currencies. They're not buying in the greenback. So the only way Biden knows how to try to enforce the petrodollar is to increase the economical sanctions on oil and gas, of Russian oil and gas, into India and China, in the hopes that the global South would lose interest in the BRIC economies or the global South Union, because America fears that the global South is a threat to their hegemonic currency over the world, the greenback ruling over the world. So now you got Biden desperately increasing sanctions on Russia in the hopes that India will be afraid and start buying more oil through OPEC, meaning flunking the House of Salt in order to float the greenback and support and supply oil in American dollars to India, in the hopes that they can also weaken the Chinese economy while they try to turn all the Quad members towards each other to fight each other and self-destruct and self-implode each other's regions. And then America will stay in the sidelines. And when all of the Quad members are ruined, laying in ruins, that's when America will sell in like knight in shining armors to pick up the pieces and to colonize the whole of Asia for pennies on a dollar. So now America's desperate than ever to hold on to the petrol reserve greenback currency over the world. And then you got Biden, like I said, desperately trying to squeeze Russia with sanctions in the hopes that India will get scared and try to buy more House of Salt oil or Emirate oil while they try to warmonger the other OPEC members, North Africa, OPEC, and the Arab nations that don't see it eye to eye with the West. So now you got Trump in the second term threatening to rain hell in the Middle East towards Yemen, Libya, Palestine. They use the excuse of hostages just to get oil wars, just to topple governments in the hope that they can intimidate the population into not questioning the Western hegemonic power within the Middle East. And the only one that's flunkied is the Emirates, United Emirates and the House of Saud, by the Pentagon, while they genocidally kill all the Arabs of the other OPEC members, OPEC nations. like Libya, uh, Iran. They're targeting Iran to topple Iran, to put a puppet to colonize Iran and Libya. They're trying to run pipelines through Syria into Western Europe. But they use the excuse of terrorism, the war against terrorism, and in reality it's just trying to route and reroute pipelines. And they use the excuse of strategic need, like Trump uses, we need Canada to be part of the Union for strategic purposes, economical strategic purposes. But in reality, it's because Trump backstabbed the Britons in Brexit with Farage. Trump had intended to divide and conquer Britain. He had intended with Exxon and the oil companies of America to steal Canada and to steal Greenland in order for him to run pipelines to make Europe, Western Europe, umbilical cords as a fetus dependent on America's foreign affairs in order to keep the Western allies enslaved to the energies of America and the dependencies of foreign affairs policies that America dictates with impunity. That's what the Republicans under Trump want to do to Western Europe. Divide and conquer it. Weaken their economies like Germany and France. Break up Britain and shamble them and Brexiteers and get them to turn like Benedict Arnolds from the European Union. That's what Trump did in 2015, 2016 with Farage. To try to divide and disturb the British economy by backstabbing it. And that's what Trump has in mind, not only with Britain, but the Dutch. Maybe for Dutch oil, maybe for BP, to sabotage them through Exxon. Trump wants to not pay transmission fees to the Canadian territory by annexing it and making part of the Union. The 51st state, he calls it. And he wants to do the same thing to the Dutch, covet their territory, in order to spread fascism throughout Trump fascism. So you got copycats in Western Europe that's close to the alt-rights talking about phobia towards migrants of the global south, with racial bigotry towards migrants of the global south. So you got copycats. Oh, immigration. Oh, we're going to deport migrants. Oh, we don't want migrants in Europe. Oh, we got to deport as many migrants. They're trying to copycat Trump. Copycat wannabe alt-rights, far right, close to the Third Reich of white bigotry of global south migrants coming into Western Europe. It's all about it's all about phobia of the global south, whether you be Latino, African, Arab, Asian. It's a phobia that the West, Trump has spread not only in America but through the West, with copycat politicians trying to run for leadership of Western nations in Europe. They're trying to emulate the Trumpisms of brown hatred. But this time is global South anti-migration hatred. So it turns to be like white European bigotry towards the global South, as far as copycat alt-right leaders that emulate Trump's phobia language towards migrants of the global South. So what I am suggesting is that all nations on earth decouple from America's reserve currency as being the petrodollar. What I am insinuating explicitly is for OPEC Plus to decouple from the petrodollar of America. Because the only ones that are not being warmongered in the OPEC members is the House of Saud and the United Emirates. But the rest of the members are being warmongered. Whether it be North Africa OPEC members, whether it be the Middle East OPEC members, all of them are being warmongered. And the only ones that are not being warmongered is the House of Saud and the United Emirates. That's the only ones that are standing on the sidelines receiving handouts by America's interests. But the rest of OPEC members are being toppled, are being warmongered, are being overthrown, are being interfered by America's foreign affairs. So I would advise the House of Saud and the United Emirates, as well as the rest of OPEC, to decouple from the American Reserve Petrodollar. I want OPEC Plus to sell oil and gas to the rest of the world and every nation's sovereign currencies. So if any nation wants to buy from OPEC Plus, they can buy in their own sovereign currencies. No matter if it's countries from the global south or countries from the Western Hemisphere. If any country wants to buy oil and gas from OPEC Plus, they will have to use their own sovereign currencies to buy oil and gas, which will make affordable transactions and not float the greenback anymore as a hegemonic weapon over the world stage. See, because America uses that petrodollar as a hegemonic weapon on foreign affairs, not only in the Middle East, throughout North Africa, but they want to enslave the whole world to it. Like Trump says, I'm going to tariff the third world 100% if they dare decouple from the American greenback as a world reserve hegemonic currency. So, regardless if it's Republicans or Democrats, they wield that petrodollar as a weapon when it comes to toppling and interfering with nations of OPEC. Basically, if you look at the list of OPEC members, the only ones that haven't suffered the bruntness of the Pentagon has been Saudi Arabia and the United Emirates. So the rest of OPEC has been warmongered by America's foreign affairs. In order for America to maintain the IMF, the World Bank, the Bank of Settlement, the SWIFT system, the Moody systems, the Internet, the Bank of Settlements, for America to float the world reserve currency and to keep the third world at bay from America as being a hegemonic power. That's how they keep America as a veto power at the United Nations. It's America and then Britain and then France. But now the Republicans want to backstab, under Trump, the British Empire. Or may I say the United Kingdom, by stealing Canada away from them and breaking them up deviously in order to shamble their economies of the United Kingdom. That's what Trump did with Farage, for the love of oil, for the love of gas, in his first term. Now he wants to steal Canada totally away by driving that knife into Britain's back. So, and they want to do the same thing to the Dutch and deny Royal Dutch their oil interests by stealing Greenland away from the Dutch to backstab the Royal Dutch Oil Company, or Shell. And they also want to backstab BP, Exxon does with Trump. So all these games is because America's too desperately trying to hold on to the world's sole superpower status with the petrodollar and the oil energies of America, while the rest of the world is trying to move on and drop a bad habit when they see it, as far as America's petrodollars. So, OPEC Plus, I'm insisting for y'all to decouple from the petrodollar and to allow every nation on earth to be free from the hegemonic enslavement of one nation's currency over the rest of the world. Because the one that paid the total price of America since the Rockefeller and Ford engines, gasoline engines, the one that paid the genocidal price was the Arab nations and the African OPEC members, as well as the Arab OPEC members. Y'all been genocide by America's foreign oil interests. North America has been genocide. The Middle East has been genocide because America propped up gasoline through those OPEC members. The only one that really made out like robber barons was the House of Saud and the Emirates, while the rest of the OPEC members were warmongered. In order for America to have a Ponzi scheme monopoly with their currency over the world stage, for America to control the veto power as a permanent member, now America is consuming Britain and France and trying to eat them and consume them. Because they're desperately trying to hold on in the United Nations as the world's sole superpower, and they're desperately not trying to lose their position on the world stage. So now they're desperate, the Republicans under Trump, and they're consuming Britain and France by dividing and conquering and creating the Brexit movement in the Trump first term. And now they're trying to steal Canada and drive a knife into Britain's back under the Trump movement. And they're trying to cripple France's economies. So America is desperately crawling. You know, America reminds me like a vicious cat that when you try to grab it, it tries to claw every which way because it's so panicky, so scared, that it tries to claw every which way. That's what America is doing now, bipartisanly, on the world stage. And it's a shame. But when the truth hurt, let it hurt. I don't give a damn how much they claw. Because at the end of the day, all nations needs to be liberated and free on the world stage. All nations from the Assembly of the United Nations needs to march into the Permanent Security Council chambers. And all nations need to take their rightful place at the table as permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. All nations need to have their equal sovereign votes accorded to as permanent members of the Security Council. And this despotism of America genocidically toppling OPEC members, the only ones that haven't faced the brunt of America and Europe as OPEC members has only been the House of Saud and the Emirates, United Emirates, while the rest of OPEC has been genocidally toppled and warmongered. In order for America to enslave the whole world to the petrol dependency of gasoline under the greenback of America's Treasury Department, while Congress is the puppet controlling the purse strings of the flow of gasoline throughout the world by flunking the House of Saud. So I want OPEC Plus to decouple and free the rest of the world from this demonic hegemonic currency. Because all the Arab regions in Africa has been warmongered for the interests of this one currency. Since the combustion engine and since Roosevelt with the House of Saud pegged it to America's currency supply to float the gasoline dependency of the world. That's how America rose up economically to control the world order of economics. Through the World Bank, the IMF, the SWIFT system, the Moody's system, it's all a monopoly game under the Ponzi scheme of American dollars, all seeing eye of the Treasury Department on the world stage. And that's how they float the fiats to the stock exchange of Federal Reserve's private bankers. So I want all nations to be liberated. All the shackles of every nation to be ripped and freed from this enslavement of a currency. This type of global enslavement of one nation's currency on the world stage. So from now on, I want OPEC to decouple from the petrodollar and to sell nation supplies of energies of OPEC Plus to the rest of the world. And whatever nation wants to buy from OPEC Plus, they can buy in their own currencies. So, as far as all the OPEC members, Libya, Iraq, now they want to topple Iran. They want to get Venezuela toppled. America's petrodollars. They caused a civil war in Libya. They invaded Iraq. They want to topple Iran. They want to topple Venezuela. African OPEC members, they've been toppled by America's foreign affairs. The only one that hasn't been touched is the Saudi Arabia, because they're unfortunately the ringleaders of OPEC through the petrodollar. And so between Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait, America has spoiled them by greasing their palms with the greenback currency in order to flow the gasoline dependencies of the whole world. And it's a shame I would say to the Crown Prince, it's a shame that all of Arab regions has been warmongered through America's Pentagon just for them to maintain the monopoly on the petrodollar. It's a shame that in your hands, in your kingdom, all of the Arabs has been genocide ever since Roosevelt pegged it to your founder of your kingdom, the petrodollar. All of the Arab nations has been millions and millions of genocides. Syria, they want to run pipelines through Syria. They want to start creating pipelines. So they're going to war with Yemen, Lebanon. They toppled Syria in a civil war. They invaded and shocked in all Iraq, and now they want to interfere with Iran to get them to be toppled. And so throughout the combustion engine's life, ever since it was mass produced for vehicles, there's been genocide to the Arab lands ever since for the love of petrodollars. The same for African OPEC members. So I would say to the House of Saud, it's time you take the responsible move and decouple from the American hegemonic currency, because America tries to enslave the whole world to it. The dependency of the world economic system is governed through America because they control the energy supply of gasoline. So the House of Saud, if you refuse to decouple, we will kick you out of OPEC Plus. We will kick you out. Because the world, the whole entire nations yearn to be free. With the global South uniting as a liberation of the third world economic systems rising up together, we will not let one petrodollar stand in our way. So I want the House of Saud to take the responsible move, along with the United Emirates and Kuwait, and to let all nations be liberated. So all nations should be able to buy oil and gas with their own currencies, their own sovereign currencies. Throughout the world, all nations should be able to use their own currencies for their energy dependencies, not to be used as an American greenback weapon with economical sanctions, while America tries to prop up its monopoly of a failing empire of a world reserve currency. See, all nations yearn to be free from the shackles of this world arching hegemonic currency that tries to topple regions just to prop up the world economy through the Treasury Department of the Stock Exchange of Wall Street through private bankers of Federal Reserves. Not only are they trying to dollarize South America to make them into serfdoms, taxed and bled for serf labor, when they don't control their money supplies, like Salvador, Ecuador, Panama. And now they're trying to enslave Argentina. They're trying to extort the Gulf of Mexico for Exxon to have pure floating energies from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up through Canada and the Dutch. So the Republicans wants to backstab the British and take and extort Canada off of them by backstabbing BP and the Royal Kingdom, the United Kingdom, to extort Canada off of Britain. They divide and conquer them and then backstab them with Brexit, Trump and Farage. And they're trying to screw BP and Royal Dutch, Shell Oil from the Shell Company. They're trying to steal Greenland in order to dominate and keep Western Europe enslaved to America's foreign affairs by spreading Trump fascism. So I urge the Crown Prince to do the right thing. I urge the United Emirates to do the right thing. I urge Kuwait to do the right thing. Because the world will move on with or without y'all. And the world will change the world order, the economic systems. We will liberate. The rest of the nations on earth will liberate themselves from this demonic, hegemonic world enslavement currency. So y'all should wake up in time to understand the movements of this new world order, that all nations yearn to be free. Now America is desperately trying to backstab Britain. There's 3 permanent members of the United Nations. America is trying to backstab Britain and cripple France's economy and then they're trying to quad China in the hopes that they can topple China and Russia for America to control the 5 permanent members as puppets within the United Nations Security Council, to keep the rest of the assembly members enslaved to the whims of America's totalitarian rule over the world. So you see how dogmatic this Republican and Democrats foreign affairs are detrimental to the rest of the nation's interests throughout the globe of this world. So I believe the House of Saud and the United Emirates and Kuwait will be on the side of the rest of the nations on earth. And they will do the right thing and decouple from America's hegemonic petrodollar over the world stage. Because the rest of OPEC is yearning to do the same thing, OPEC plus one. And as well as OPEC, I did a United Nations grant initiative to pivot OPEC from peak oil into clean renewable energies, so they can continue to be prosperous in the green new energies of tomorrow. So I created a United Nations grant initiative program for OPEC Plus members to pivot in peak oil, to start pivoting to green renewable energies. But for right now, do the responsible thing and decouple from the petrodollar. And so now America wants to rain hell over the Middle East with Trumpisms. They want to steal Canada away because they don't want to pay transmission fees to BP. Exxon doesn't, or to the United Kingdom, neither to Royal Dutch or the Dutch for Greenland. And they want to rain hell on the OPEC members and try to topple Iran and Venezuela. They're the next ones up on the chopping block for the Pentagon interests. So they want to quad all of the Asian region in order for them to self-implode, self-destroy themselves, while America and Britain stands on the sidelines, and then they come in at the end and colonize y'all all for pennies on the dollar, because your lands of quadding yourselves in and self-destroying yourselves will leave America to recolonize y'all for pennies on a dollar. So what I want is America and Europe out of the Middle East. That same thing as the Quad organizations to be dissolved. I want the whole of Asia to be maintained peacetime economics as a Asian bloc economic. The same for Arabs, the Arab regions. I want you to be peaceful with an Arab bloc of economics, united as a bloc of economics. Asia united as a bloc of economics. Africa united as a bloc of economics. South America united as a bloc of economics. So I want the whole global South to be multipolar, united blocks of economics. Eastern Europe, you to be a bloc of economics. Western Europe, United States to be a bloc of economics. Western Europe to be a bloc of economics. And that's what you call a multipolar economic system. Look at my YouTube channel. Go on Google search engine and type in at RL101 United Nations. And you start to study my economic plans, my blueprint for the new global economic systems of tomorrow, as well as all nations being permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. So when all rules are afforded and accorded and adhered to, all nations will have a say at the table.